All right, today we're jumping into a really fascinating story about education, technology, and what happens when they collide. We're going to follow a group of students who were given a whole bunch of AI tools and one very ambitious project. So the whole experiment really boils down to this one big question. What actually happens when you take a bunch of students from all over the world, give them some powerful new AI, and then ask them to do something massive? Like build an entire international conference from the ground up. Let's find out. You know, every big project, it always starts with the people, right? And in this case, before any AI got involved, before a single slide was made, it all began with a group of students facing a challenge that was, let's just say, pretty intimidating. So here's the setup. It was part of this program called COIL, that's Collaborative Online International Learning. You've got students from Israel and the EU all meeting up virtually. Their mission? Put together this huge conference, the AI Icon 2025. And this wasn't just a thought exercise. They had to actually use AI to manage and pull off a real-world international event. And you can feel the pressure right away. I mean, for a lot of these students, this wasn't just another class project. This was the first time they'd ever been on a global stage like this. And yeah, the nerves were definitely real. And that feeling, it was a pretty common thread. Here's another student saying the whole idea was just hard to even wrap their head around. It sparked all those classic worries about stage fright and just the huge scale of it all. And the nervousness wasn't just about public speaking. It was about the responsibility. They were pouring so much work into this. And that fear in the back of your mind, the one that whispers, what if this doesn't work? Well, that was a heavy weight to carry. Okay, so they've got this massive, kind of scary task in front of them. But they weren't just thrown to the wolves. They were handed a brand new toolkit, basically a whole squad of AI helpers to help them get the job done. So let's take a peek inside this AI toolbox. For whipping up pro-level presentations fast, they had Gamma. When they needed to do research and actually check the sources, they used Perplexity. If a problem got really tricky, they could turn to Claude. And of course, for all the day-to-day stuff like brainstorming and writing, you've got ChatGPT. Then you have your design and website builders like Canva and Wix AI to round it all out. And pretty quickly, students started finding their go-to tools. Take this student, for example. They said aesthetics were a really big deal for them, so having a tool like Gamma that could just create clean, professional slides, total game changer. It let them focus on the actual content, not just fiddling with design.
Now, this is really interesting. What you see here is how much they valued trust. It wasn't enough to just get an answer from the AI. They needed to know it was reliable. So a tool like Perplexity, which actually gives you the sources, that was huge. It meant they could go back and fact-check everything, and that really built their confidence in what the AI was telling them.
All right, so they've got the tech. They've got this amazing AI toolkit. But, you know, having the tools is only half the battle. Making it all work with a team of people from all over the world, well, that's where things get complicated. And trust me, it wasn't always a smooth ride.
This slide just nails the central conflict, doesn't it? On one hand, you've got this sleek promise of AI. Everything's supposed to be instant, efficient, professional. But then you crash into the reality of human teamwork. And that's messy. It's full of communication breakdowns, over-reliance on the tech, and just navigating all those tricky group dynamics.
And man, did they learn some lessons the hard way. One of the biggest? AI isn't perfect. As this student puts it so bluntly, you have to remember that AI can and will lie. You can't just blindly trust everything it spits out. That idea of thinking critically became super, super important.
And here's another thing. No amount of cool tech can fix a classic people problem. This student points out something we've all probably experienced: too many managers. You know, when the work is split between so many people, no one really feels like they own it. No one feels like their piece is make or break for the whole thing.
And this is a real glimpse into a low point. Can you imagine? You're in a virtual breakout room, the clock is ticking on this massive project, and crickets, just total silence. This student's quote perfectly captures that sinking feeling, that moment of thinking, oh no, we're not going to make it.
But here's the thing, they didn't fall apart. They pushed through that awkward silence, through all the confusion, all the tech issues. And what came out on the other side of that struggle Well, that's where you see this incredible transformation happen. Let's actually look at some data here, because it's pretty wild. They asked the students to rate their own skills before and after. And check this out. For something like building consensus in a group, their self-rating jumped from a 2.8 all the way to a 4.5 on a 5-point scale. That's a massive leap. It's not just a fuzzy feeling. It's real, measurable growth. And the growth wasn't just about skills, it was personal. I mean, this reflection is so honest. The student says that working together like this actually made them a humbler, more patient person. That's basically an education in emotional intelligence, right there. And hey, remember that student from the beginning, the one who was so nervous about presenting? Well, look at this. This is their reflection afterwards. The whole experience completely flipped their perspective. What seemed so complicated and scary before, now, not so much. It's a perfect story arc, from fear to feeling empowered. And maybe the most powerful lesson of all had nothing to do with AI or grades. It was about people. It was learning firsthand that people from totally different backgrounds, different countries, different religions, they can absolutely work together with mutual respect. That's a huge takeaway.
So what does all this mean? What are the big lessons here? Well, this whole experience gives us a really powerful blueprint for thinking about education and even work in this new world of AI and remote teams. And who better to tell us how to do it better next time than the students who just went through it? Their feedback was super clear. First, clearer communication, well-defined roles, solid deadlines right from the get-go. They also said they needed more dedicated time to just mess around with the tools and more structured time to actually work as a team. And this is a big one. You have to intentionally create ways for the online folks to be included so they don't feel like they're just watching from the sidelines.
And you know what? They really committed to this feedback process. This is just a simple confirmation that they submitted their final thoughts, but it shows how invested they were. They wanted to make sure that everything they learned, the good and the bad, would help the next group of students.
Which brings us to a final big question to chew on. This whole thing started with technology, right? A bunch of cool AI tools. But where it ended up was somewhere much more human. And it really makes you think, maybe the real power of AI in education isn't about what it can create for us. Maybe its real power is in creating these big, messy challenges that force us to connect, to communicate better, and to figure out how to be better humans together. Thanks for joining us.